The woman in the wheelchair had a face Ethan swore he'd seen before. But where? And why was the maître d' so terrified when she whispered her real name? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's story, I need to know where in the world you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button now because you don't want to miss any of our stories here. Now let's jump in. Ethan Bourne realized he'd made a terrible mistake the moment the maître d's face went white. Not annoyed. Not offended. Terrified. But that came later. 60 seconds earlier, Ethan had simply been a broke single dad trying to give his daughter one magical birthday dinner at a restaurant he couldn't afford. He'd been calculating tips in his head, wondering if he could skip lunch for the next week to cover the bill, when Lily grabbed his sleeve. Dad, look what they're doing to her. At the entrance of Lumiere, a woman sat trapped at the bottom of the marble staircase in a wheelchair that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Her hands rested perfectly still on the armrests. Too still, like she was forcing herself not to shake. Her dark hair obscured most of her face, but something about the curve of her jaw, the elegant slope of her neck. Where have I seen her before? Madam, I've been patient. The maître d' loomed over her, his voice dripping with barely concealed contempt. Lumiere maintains certain standards. Your condition presents complications we're not prepared to handle. I suggest you leave before I call security. A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd. Expensive perfume and judgment hung thick in the air. Phones appeared in manicured hands, not to help, but to record. The woman finally looked up. Ethan's breath caught. Her face was stunning, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that held oceans of grief, and something else. Something familiar that tugged at the corners of his memory like a half-forgotten dream. She'd been crying. Recently. The evidence glistened at the corners of those devastating eyes. Please, she whispered. The word barely carried across the marble. I just wanted to. The answer is no. The maître d' snapped his fingers toward the valet. Escort this woman away from the premises. Lily's hand squeezed Ethan's. His 10-year-old daughter, who'd learned about injustice too young when her mother abandoned them both, looked up at him with eyes that asked a silent question. Are you going to let this happen? Every rational thought screamed at Ethan to stay out of it. He had $247 in his bank account. He had a daughter depending on him. He had an eviction notice he couldn't pay and a car that might not start tomorrow. He had everything to lose. But something about the woman's face, about the familiar ache in her eyes that mirrored his own loneliness, made him move. Ethan walked straight to the woman's wheelchair, his heart slamming against his ribs. Actually, he said, his voice cutting through the whispers, she's dining with us tonight. The maître d's eyebrows shot up. Sir, I don't think you understand the situation. I understand perfectly. Ethan positioned himself between the man and the woman, his jaw set. You're discriminating against someone because of a disability. That's illegal. It's also disgusting. Silence crashed over the entrance like a wave. The woman in the wheelchair stared up at Ethan, shock flickering across her features. Up close, the familiarity intensified. He knew her from somewhere, but the memory stayed frustratingly out of reach. The maître d's face cycled through several shades of red. Sir, if you insist on making a scene, I'll have to ask you both to. What's your name? The woman's voice was stronger now, directed at Ethan. Refined. The kind of voice that came from expensive schools and old money. Ethan Bourne. He offered a slight smile. And this is my daughter, Lily. Something shifted in the woman's expression. Surprise mixed with something that looked almost like hope. She reached into the designer bag on her lap and pulled out a business card. Not handing it over. Just holding it. Just staring at it. Then she looked up at the maître d', and when she spoke, her voice carried a weight that made the man actually step backward. Call Thomas Whitmore. Now. Tell him Isabella Grant is being denied service at his establishment. The effect was instantaneous and electric. The maître d's face didn't just go pale. It went ash-gray. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Around them, The name rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Isabella Grant. Ethan's stomach dropped as the memory finally clicked into place. The magazine covers from 5 years ago. The tragic accident that had killed her parents and left the 25-year-old heiress paralyzed. The $100 million trust fund. The complete disappearance from public life. Oh God. The woman he'd just defended wasn't just wealthy. She was one of the richest people in the country. And from the way she was looking at him now, with tears streaming down her face and something that looked like wonder in her eyes, Ethan had just done something that was about to change everything. The restaurant manager, Thomas Whitmore himself, arrived in less than 4 minutes. Ethan watched the older man practically sprint through the dining room, his face flushed, his expensive suit jacket flapping behind him. The maître d' had gone from terrified to absolutely catatonic, standing frozen like a statue carved from pure regret. Ms. Grant. Whitmore skidded to a stop, slightly breathless. I cannot. There are no words. Pierre, you're fired. Effective immediately. He didn't even look at the maître d' as he said it. Security will escort you out. Pierre's mouth worked soundlessly before 2 men in dark suits appeared and guided him away. Ethan caught the phrase lawsuit and discrimination floating in Whitmore's furious whisper. Isabella Grant sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, composed now, the tears gone. Only the slight red rimming her eyes betrayed that she'd been crying at all. When she spoke, her voice carried the kind of authority that came from generations of wealth. Mr. Whitmore, I'd like the private dining room. 4-3. Her eyes flickered to Ethan and Lily. These are my guests. Of course, of course. Right away. Please, allow me to. We can manage. Isabella's hands moved to her wheels with practiced efficiency, but Ethan noticed the tremor was back. Barely visible, but there. Lily stepped forward, her voice small but brave. Can I help push? I'll be really careful. For the first time since Ethan had seen her, Isabella Grant smiled. It transformed her entire face, chasing away the grief and replacing it with something warm and genuine. I'd like that very much. The private dining room was all floor-to-ceiling windows and candlelight, overlooking the glittering city skyline. Ethan felt absurdly out of place in his clean but worn button-down shirt, the nicest thing he owned. He'd ironed it 3 times this morning, wanting everything perfect for Lily's birthday. Now he was dining with a billionaire. How is this my life? You're wondering why I'm here. Isabella's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. Lily was momentarily distracted by the menu, her eyes wide at options that didn't include prices. Why someone like me would come to a place like this alone? Ethan met her gaze. It's none of my business. You made it your business when you defended me. Something flickered in her dark eyes. A test, maybe, or a challenge. Most people wouldn't have. Most people would have pulled out their phones and watched. Most people aren't raising a daughter who's watching their every move. The words came out before Ethan could stop them. He glanced at Lily, who was pretending not to listen while absolutely listening. I need her to know that when someone's being hurt, you don't look away. Even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary. Isabella's expression softened. Your wife must be very proud. The familiar ache bloomed in Ethan's chest. Grief mixed with abandonment mixed with a fury he'd learned to bury deep. No wife, Lily announced, looking up from the menu with the brutal honesty only a 10-year-old could manage. Mom left when I was 7. Said being a parent wasn't her journey. Whatever that means. She said it matter-of-factly, but Ethan caught the tiny waver in her voice. He'd heard it 1,000 times. That little crack that said the wound was still fresh. Lily. It's okay, Dad. Ms. Grant asked. Lily shrugged, but her small hands twisted the napkin in her lap. We're fine. Just the 2 of us. Right, Dad. Right, sweetheart. Ethan's throat felt tight. Always. Isabella was quiet for a long moment, studying them both. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before. My parents died 5 years ago. Car accident on the Pacific Coast Highway. She said it simply, clinically, like reciting facts might make them hurt less. I was in the back seat. They died instantly. I woke up in a hospital, and everything below my waist was gone. Lily's eyes went wide. I'm sorry. So am I. Isabella's smile was sad. I haven't been to a restaurant in 3 years. Haven't been anywhere, really. I have a penthouse with a private chef and everything delivered. It's easier that way. Safer. Then why tonight? Ethan asked gently. Isabella's hands trembled again on the armrests. She stared out at the city lights, and for a moment, she looked impossibly young and impossibly lonely. Because today is my 30th birthday, she whispered. And I realized I've spent the last 5 years hiding from a world that sees me as broken. I wanted to prove I wasn't. That I could do something normal, like go to dinner. Her laugh was bitter. You saw how well that worked. The waiter appeared with champagne for Isabella and sparkling cider for Lily. As he poured, Ethan watched the way Isabella's jaw tightened, the way her eyes tracked every movement like she was waiting for judgment. He recognized that look. He wore it himself every time he walked into Lily's school surrounded by 2-parent families. Every time he counted coins for groceries. Every time the landlord called about late rent. Different circumstances. Same isolation. Well, Ethan raised his glass, surprising himself. Today's also Lily's 10th birthday. So we're celebrating anyway. Both of you. Lily grinned and lifted her cider. To birthdays. Isabella looked between them, something unreadable crossing her face. Slowly, she raised her champagne flute. To unexpected kindness, she said quietly, her eyes locked on Ethan's. And to the rarest thing in the world, people who actually give a damn. Their glasses clinked in the candlelight. Ethan had no idea that this simple toast was sealing both their fates. That the woman across from him had been searching for something, or someone, for months. That his name, Ethan Bourne, was about to be run through background checks and private investigations. That his act of kindness had just caught the attention of someone powerful enough to change his life. Or complicate it beyond recognition. All he knew was that for the first time in 3 years of struggling alone, drowning in bills and fear and responsibility, someone was looking at him like he mattered. Like he was more than just a broke single dad barely holding it together. And that feeling, dangerous and intoxicating and terrifying, was something Ethan hadn't felt since the day his ex-wife walked out. Dinner passed in a blur of laughter and stories. Lily charmed Isabella with tales of her school science project. Isabella shared carefully edited memories of her childhood. Ethan found himself relaxing, forgetting for brief moments the chasm of wealth between them. Then the bill came. Ethan reached for it automatically, but Isabella's hand was faster. My guests, she said firmly. My treat. Ms. Grant, I appreciate it. But... Isabella, please. She signed the check without looking at the total. And I have a proposition for you, Ethan. Something in her tone made his stomach twist. The warmth from dinner evaporated, replaced by a businesslike intensity in her dark eyes. I need someone I can trust. Isabella leaned forward. Someone who sees me as a person, not a bank account. Not a headline or a tragedy or a lawsuit settlement waiting to happen. I don't understand. I'm looking for a personal assistant. Someone to help me navigate the world again. Her voice dropped. I've hired 12 people in the past 2 years. Every single one leaked to the press, stole from me, or tried to manipulate me for money. But you helped me when you thought I was nobody. Ethan's heart hammered. Isabella, I'm not qualified for. Salary is $180,000 a year. Full benefits. I'll cover Lily's private school tuition, your housing, everything. The room tilted. $180,000. That was more than Ethan had made in the past 3 years combined. That was the eviction notice disappearing. That was Lily's braces, her college fund, her future. There's something you should know, he said slowly, hating the words even as he spoke them. I got fired from my last job. Construction company went under, but before that, I had a disagreement with my supervisor about safety violations. I reported him. It didn't go well. He met her eyes. I'm not good at keeping my mouth shut when I see something wrong. Isabella's smile was sharp and approving. That's exactly why I'm offering you the position. Dad. Lily's voice was small, hopeful. Before Ethan could respond, Isabella's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her entire face transformed, color draining, eyes going wide with something that looked like fear. What's wrong? Ethan asked. Isabella's hands shook as she turned the phone around. On the screen was a photo, clearly taken tonight through the restaurant window. Ethan and Isabella at dinner, Lily laughing between them. The headline blazed above it. Reclusive billionaire Isabella Grant spotted with mystery man and child. Secret family? Oh God, Isabella whispered. It's already starting. Ethan's phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started ringing. Unknown number. What's happening? Lily asked, fear creeping into her voice. Isabella looked up at Ethan, her expression raw and desperate. I'm so sorry. I've just made you famous. And in about 10 minutes, everyone you've ever known is going to be calling you about me. As if on cue, the restaurant's front entrance exploded with camera flashes. The press had arrived. The cameras didn't stop. 3 days after the dinner, Ethan's face was still plastered across tabloids and gossip sites. The headlines got progressively more ridiculous. Billionaire's secret romance, mystery man captures heiress heart. From rags to riches, the nobody who won Isabella Grant. Ethan's phone had become a weapon of psychological warfare. Reporters camped outside his apartment building. His ex-wife, who hadn't called in 2 years, left 6 voicemails asking about reconnecting. Old acquaintances crawled out of the woodwork with suspicious investment opportunities. Mr. Bourne. Lily's teacher cornered him at school pickup. Is it true you're dating Isabella Grant? Because if you need someone to manage your social calendar. Her smile was predatory. Everyone wanted something. Ethan had never felt more alone. Isabella's town car arrived at 7 p.m. on Thursday, exactly as her text had promised. Get in, she called through the open window. I'm rescuing you. Ethan hesitated on the curb, Lily's hand in his. 2 photographers materialized from nowhere, cameras clicking like mechanical insects. Trust me, Isabella said quietly. He did. That was the terrifying part. The car door closed behind them, sealing out the chaos. Isabella had a baseball cap pulled low, her hair tucked away, dressed in casual clothes that probably cost more than Ethan's rent but looked almost normal. Where are we going? Lily asked, bouncing slightly in the leather seat. Somewhere they'll never look. Isabella's smile was mischievous. Somewhere I haven't been in 5 years. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a small public park on the edge of the city. No cameras. No crowds. Just streetlights and the distant sound of traffic. You're sure about this? Ethan asked as he helped Isabella into her wheelchair, something he'd learned to do properly over the past 3 days of texts and phone calls. Absolutely not, Isabella admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. They walked, rolled, through the park in comfortable silence. Lily ran ahead to the swings, close enough to watch but far enough to give them space. I owe you an apology, Isabella said finally. I've destroyed your privacy, your normal life, all because I was selfish enough to want one evening out. You didn't destroy anything. Ethan's voice was firm. Those photographers did. The people treating me like a lottery ticket did. You just wanted dinner. Still. She stopped her wheelchair, turning to face him. The streetlight caught her features, making her look almost ethereal. The job offer still stands. But I'll understand if you can't accept. If you don't want your daughter growing up in this circus. Ethan thought about the eviction notice. About Lily's worn shoes and the field trip she'd skipped because he couldn't afford it. About the grinding, suffocating fear that he was failing her. But he also thought about something else. Can I ask you something? He sat on the park bench beside her. That first night, you said you'd been looking for someone you could trust. Why did you decide you could trust me? Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what people see when they look at me? What? A tragedy. A victim. A broken thing. Her voice cracked slightly. Or they see dollar signs. But you looked at me like I was just a person being treated badly. Like my wheelchair was irrelevant. It is irrelevant. No. Isabella's eyes locked onto his, intense and searching. It's part of who I am. But it's not all of who I am. And somehow, you understood that in 30 seconds. She paused. I've spent 5 years with therapists and assistants and advisors who all tiptoe around my disability like it's a bomb. You just treated me like a human being. Something shifted in the air between them. Ethan became acutely aware of how close they were, how the streetlight made her eyes look endless. The truth is, Isabella continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, I'm terrified. Of trusting people. Of leaving my apartment. Of being hurt again. She took a breath. But I'm more terrified of spending the rest of my life hiding. And I hope, you might be someone worth taking a risk on. Ethan's heart thundered in his chest. This wasn't just a job offer anymore. This was something far more dangerous. Isabella. His phone exploded with notifications. Both of them jumped. Ethan looked at the screen and felt his blood turn to ice. It was a photo of them. Right now. In the park. Already posted online with a caption that made his stomach turn. Isabella Grant's mystery man is broke single dad Ethan Bourne. Fired from construction job, facing eviction. Is this a romance or a gold digger story? Below it, someone had posted his address. His daughter's school. His employment history. Everything. Oh God. Ethan breathed. They've doxed me. Isabella grabbed the phone, her face going pale. No, this can't. She looked up at him, horror in her eyes. Ethan, I'm so sorry. We need to get you and Lily somewhere safe. Now. Safe from what? As if in answer, a car pulled up to the park entrance. Then another. Headlights cut through the darkness. The vultures had found them. Isabella's driver created a barrier with the car while they escaped through the park's back exit. They ended up at a place Ethan never expected, Isabella's penthouse. The private elevator opened directly into her apartment. 30 floors above the city, all glass walls and minimalist furniture that screamed money. But what struck Ethan wasn't the wealth. It was how empty it felt. Like a beautiful prison. Lily had fallen asleep in the car. Isabella's housekeeper, a kind woman named Marie, took her to a guest room without question, leaving Ethan and Isabella alone in the cavernous living room. Drink. Isabella moved to a bar cart. Answers. Ethan countered. What the hell is happening? This isn't normal media attention, Isabella. Someone posted my daughter's school. Isabella poured 2 whiskeys with shaking hands. You're right. It's not normal. She took a long drink. Ethan, I haven't been completely honest with you. His stomach dropped. What does that mean? That dinner at Lumiere, I didn't just randomly choose that restaurant. She wouldn't meet his eyes. I've been going to therapy, trying to work up the courage to re-enter public life. My therapist suggested starting small. A public place. A test run. Okay. But there's more. Isabella wheeled closer, her expression tortured. 3 months ago, I started noticing irregularities in my family's trust fund. Money moving in ways that didn't make sense. Shell companies. Offshore accounts. Her voice hardened. Someone's been embezzling from me for years. Millions of dollars. Ethan's mind raced. Who? My uncle. Richard Grant. The name came out like poison. He's been my trustee since my parents died. He controls everything until I turn 30 and can claim full control of the estate. Your birthday, Ethan whispered. That's why you went out that night. Isabella nodded. In 3 days, I turn 30. The trust transfers completely to me, and I can remove Richard, audit everything, prosecute him. Her hands clenched. He knows I've been investigating. He's desperate. You think he's behind this media circus? I think he's trying to destroy my credibility before I can destroy him. Isabella's eyes blazed. If he can paint me as mentally unstable, make it look like I'm being manipulated by some opportunistic stranger, he can challenge my competency. Delay the transfer. Maybe even get conservatorship. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. I'm not the story. I'm the weapon. Yes. Isabella's voice broke. And I am so sorry. When you defended me at that restaurant, you were just being kind. You didn't know you were stepping into a war. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. I should have warned you. Should have stayed away from you. But I was selfish and lonely, and you looked at me like I was worth defending, and I. She stopped, but the words hung in the air between them. Ethan should have been furious. Should have grabbed Lily and run. Instead, he found himself kneeling beside her wheelchair, his voice soft. What were you going to say? Isabella's breath hitched. That for the first time in 5 years, someone made me feel alive. Not broken. Not like a victim or a balance sheet. Just alive. Her hand trembled as she reached up, fingers barely grazing his cheek. And I've ruined your life because of it. The touch sent electricity through Ethan's skin. He was standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing he should step back but unable to move. My life was already ruined, he said quietly. I was 3 weeks from being homeless. My daughter was skipping meals so I could pay the electric bill. I was drowning, Isabella. He caught her hand, holding it against his face. Maybe we're both just desperate people who found each other at the right time. Or the worst possible time. Maybe both. They stayed frozen like that, the city glittering below them, both knowing they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Isabella's phone shattered the moment. She glanced at the screen and went white. Oh no. What? She turned the phone around. It was a video, grainy security footage from the park. But it had been edited, manipulated. The angle made it look like Ethan was grabbing Isabella, threatening her. The caption read, Ethan Bourne caught on camera intimidating Isabella Grant. Sources say he's demanding money. Is the billionaire heiress in danger? That's not what happened. Ethan's voice rose. That's completely fabricated. I know. Isabella was already dialing. Richard has connections everywhere. Media, police, judges. Her call went to voicemail. She tried another number. He's going to use this to get a restraining order against you. Then he'll petition for emergency conservatorship, claiming I'm being exploited and need protection. Can he do that? With enough money and the right lawyers? Absolutely. Isabella's hands flew across her phone screen. I need to call my attorney. Get ahead of this before. The elevator chimed. They both froze. Marie doesn't use that elevator, Isabella whispered. And no one else has the code. The doors slid open. A man in his 50s stepped out. Silver hair, expensive suit, cold eyes that swept the room like a predator. Behind him, 2 men in security uniforms. Hello, Isabella. His voice was smooth, urbane. We need to talk about your situation. Uncle Richard. Isabella's voice turned to ice. How did you get my access code? I'm still your trustee, dear. I have access to everything. Richard's eyes slid to Ethan, and his smile sharpened. Mr. Bourne. How convenient. I was hoping to meet the man who's been taking advantage of my vulnerable niece. Ethan stood, positioning himself between Richard and Isabella. I think you should leave. Actually, I have a court order. Richard pulled papers from his jacket. Emergency psychiatric evaluation. Given the concerning reports of Miss Grant's erratic behavior and susceptibility to manipulation, a judge has ordered a 72-hour hold for assessment. That's insane. Isabella's voice cracked. You can't. I can. I did. Richard nodded to his security. Gentlemen, please escort my niece to the car. Dr. Jameson is waiting at Greyston facility. The men moved forward. Ethan's body moved on instinct, blocking them. Don't touch her. Mr. Bourne, I'd advise you not to interfere with a legal court order. That would be obstruction. Richard's smile was venomous. Though I suppose we could add kidnapping charges to the restraining order I've already filed. You son of a... Dad. Everyone turned. Lily stood in the hallway, rubbing her eyes, Marie behind her looking terrified. Richard's expression shifted, cold calculation replacing the false concern. And this must be your daughter. How unfortunate for a child to be caught up in such a sordid situation. Child Protective Services might need to. Don't. Isabella's voice cut through the room like a blade. She wheeled forward, placing herself between Richard and Lily. Don't you dare threaten that child. Then come quietly. Richard's voice dropped. Sign the temporary conservatorship papers. Let me protect you from this obvious conman. And maybe, I'll forget about Mr. Bourne's transgressions. Ethan's mind raced. If Isabella fought, Richard would have Lily investigated, possibly removed from his care. If she didn't, Richard would lock her away and steal everything. They were trapped. Isabella looked at Ethan, and in her eyes, he saw a message. I'm sorry. I have to protect your daughter. She was going to surrender. Wait. Ethan's voice was hoarse. Isabella, don't. It's okay. Isabella's smile was heartbreaking. Take care of Lily. That's all that matters. She wheeled toward Richard's security guards, her spine straight, her face a mask of composure. But Ethan saw her hands, shaking violently on the armrests. No. The word tore from his throat. There has to be another way. Richard's laugh was cruel. There isn't. My niece needs help, and you need to disappear. He pulled out a check, waving it casually. Here's $50,000. Take your daughter and leave the city. Or stay and watch child services take her while you're arrested for extortion. Ethan's world narrowed to that single choice. Money and safety for Lily, or fight and lose everything. Isabella looked back one last time. Take it, Ethan. Please. Save your daughter. Then she was gone, wheeled into the elevator by men who didn't care that she was crying. The doors closed on her face, beautiful and terrified and utterly alone. The silence that followed felt like death. Marie pressed a flash drive into Ethan's hand as Richard's men escorted him out. She made me promise, the housekeeper whispered. If anything happened. Bank records. Emails. Everything. Then Ethan was on the street with Lily, holding a check he couldn't cash and evidence he didn't know how to use. The next 48 hours were hell. Ethan tried calling lawyers. None would take the case against Richard Grant's legal team. He tried the police. They laughed him out of the station. The media painted him as a predator who'd manipulated a disabled woman. His landlord changed the locks. Someone slashed his tires. Lily's school suggested she'd be happier elsewhere. Every door slammed in his face. On the second night, Lily found him staring at the flash drive, tears streaming down his face. We're going to help her, right? His daughter's voice was small. Like you helped her at the restaurant. Baby, I don't know how. Yes, you do. Lily climbed into his lap, too big for it now, but he held her anyway. You always know how. You're my dad. The faith in her voice broke something open in Ethan's chest. He'd been thinking like a broke, powerless man. But Isabella hadn't given him this evidence because she thought he was powerless. She'd given it to him because she trusted him to fight. Ethan opened his laptop and started going through the files. Financial records. Email chains. Patterns of theft spanning 5 years. And buried at the bottom, a video file labeled insurance. He clicked it. Isabella's face filled the screen, clearly recorded weeks ago. She looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this, Ethan, then Richard has already made his move. And I need you to know something. She took a shaky breath. I didn't choose you randomly. I had you investigated before I ever went to that restaurant. Ethan's heart stopped. I needed someone honest. Someone who couldn't be bought. Someone with everything to lose who'd still do the right thing. Her eyes glistened. I found 19 stories about you. Standing up to your boss about safety violations even though you knew you'd be fired. refusing bribes from contractors, reporting fraud that cost you friendships. The video. Isabella leaned forward. You've spent your whole life being punished for your integrity, and I'm about to ask you to be punished one more time. Her voice cracked. There's a reporter named Sarah Chen at the Metropolitan Journal. She's been investigating Richard for months but can't get sources to talk. This evidence, combined with your testimony, could bring him down. She paused, tears falling freely now. But it will cost you everything. The media will destroy you worse than they already have. Richard will come after you legally, financially, personally. You'll be front-page news for months. Lily will suffer for it. Isabella's voice dropped to a whisper. So if you want to take the money and run, I understand. I will never blame you. Protect your daughter. Forget about me. The screen went dark for a moment. Then Isabella appeared again, closer this time, her voice barely audible. But if you fight, if you help me one more time, maybe we both get the ending we deserve. A sad smile. Maybe we both get free. The video ended. Ethan sat in the darkness of the cheap motel room, his daughter asleep beside him, the flash drive burning in his hand. Every logical part of his brain screamed to take the money and run, to protect Lily from the firestorm that would come. But he thought about Isabella's face in that elevator. Thought about the way she'd smiled when Lily offered to push her wheelchair. Thought about the woman who'd spent 5 years in a beautiful prison, too terrified to trust anyone. Who'd trusted him anyway? Ethan looked at his sleeping daughter, brave, brilliant Lily, who believed her father was someone worth believing in. Then he picked up his phone and dialed the number Isabella had included in the file. Sarah Chen, Metropolitan Journal. My name is Ethan Bourne, he said quietly, and I have a story about Richard Grant that you're going to want to hear. On the other end of the line, he heard the click of a recorder starting. There was no going back now. Sarah Chen worked fast. Within 12 hours, she'd verified every document on the flash drive. Within 24, she'd gotten 3 other victims of Richard Grant's financial schemes to go on record. Within 36 hours, the story went live. The article was devastating. Forensic accountants, timeline charts, whistleblower testimonies, and Ethan's statement, careful, factual, damning. The internet exploded. Within hours, the narrative flipped. Ethan wasn't a gold digger anymore. He was the hero who'd exposed corruption. Isabella wasn't mentally unstable. She was a victim being silenced. The hashtag #FreeIsabella trended worldwide. But Richard Grant didn't go down quietly. Mr. Bourne, you need to see this. Sarah's voice was tight when she called that evening. Ethan turned on the TV. Richard Grant stood at a podium, his expression grave and concerned. I'm deeply saddened by these baseless accusations. My niece Isabella is a troubled young woman who's been manipulated by an opportunist. These so-called financial irregularities are accounting errors being weaponized by a man who saw a vulnerable, lonely woman and decided to exploit her. He dabbed at his eyes. I only want what's best for Isabella. That's why I've petitioned for permanent conservatorship, to protect her from people like Ethan Bourne. The press conference ended. Ethan's phone rang immediately. Sarah again. He's filed an emergency injunction. Court hearing is tomorrow at 9 a.m. If the judge grants conservatorship, Isabella loses everything. Her freedom, her money, her voice. Sarah paused. And you'll be facing criminal charges for defamation and harassment. Can we win? Not if Isabella can't testify. And she's locked in Greyston facility under sedation. Ethan's blood ran cold. They're drugging her. Standard protocol for agitated patients, according to their statement. Convenient, right? Sarah's voice hardened. We need her testimony, Ethan. Without it, this is just he said she said. And Richard has 50 years of reputation on his side. Ethan stared out the motel window at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Isabella was trapped, silenced, probably terrified. He thought about giving up. Thought about the impossibility of breaking into a private psychiatric facility. Then Lily appeared beside him, holding her tablet. "Dad? I think I found something." On the screen was a social media post from someone named at @MurrayH_2891. Posted 20 minutes ago. Asterisk working late at Greyston tonight. Some patients deserve better. Room 304. Visitor access at shift change is 11 p.m. Security is lax at north entrance. Just saying. Asterisk. Marie. Isabella's housekeeper. She's giving us a way in, Lily whispered. Ethan looked at his daughter. Brilliant. Brave Lily who'd already lost so much. Baby. This is dangerous. So was standing up to that mean man at the restaurant. You did it anyway. She grabbed his hand. We're a team, Dad. We fight for people who need us. That's what Borns do. Something shifted in Ethan's chest. Not just determination. Something bigger. Purpose. He'd spent 3 years just surviving. Keeping his head down. Playing it safe. And where had it gotten him? Broke, scared, one disaster away from losing everything. But these past few days, standing up to the Metro D, facing down Richard Grant, exposing corruption, he'd felt alive for the first time since his ex-wife left. Maybe some things were worth risking everything for. Maybe some people were. Sarah, Ethan said into the phone. If I can get Isabella to that courthouse tomorrow, if she can testify, can you guarantee media coverage? Every network in the country will be there. This is the biggest story of the year. Then we're bringing her. Ethan checked his watch. 9:47 p.m. One way or another. The north entrance of Greyston facility had exactly one security guard, and he was absorbed in his phone when Ethan slipped past at 11:04 p.m. Marie met him on the 3rd floor, her face lined with worry. Room 304. She's awake but groggy. They've been medicating her every 6 hours. Marie pressed a key card into his hand. You have maybe 15 minutes before the next nurse rotation. Thank you. For everything. Don't thank me. Just get her out. She deserves to be free. Marie's eyes glistened. I watched that girl suffer for 5 years. Watched her rebuild herself piece by piece. I won't watch her uncle destroy her. Ethan moved down the sterile hallway, his heart hammering. Room 304's door clicked open. The room was dark except for the city lights filtering through reinforced windows. Isabella sat in her wheelchair by the glass, her hair loose around her shoulders, her body trembling. Isabella! She turned, and even in the darkness, he could see her eyes were red from crying. Ethan! Her voice was hoarse, disbelieving. You're not real. They said you took the money. That you left. He crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling beside her chair. I'm real. And I'm not going anywhere. Her hand reached out, touching his face like she had in the penthouse, but tentative now, afraid he'd disappear. You should have run. You should have taken Lily Ann. And what? Let you fight alone. Ethan caught her hand, holding it firmly. You trusted me with your evidence. Your story. Your truth. Did you really think I'd walk away? Tears streamed down Isabella's face. Everyone else did. I'm not everyone else. His voice was fierce. And tomorrow morning, you're going to walk into that courthouse and take back everything he stole from you. Your freedom. Your voice. Your life. I can't. Look at me. I can barely think straight. They've been, her voice broke. He's going to win, Ethan. Men like Richard always win. Not this time. Ethan stood, positioning himself behind her wheelchair. This time, you've got something he doesn't. What? He leaned down, his voice soft in her ear. Someone who sees you. Not your money. Not your disability. Not your tragedy. Just you. And the you I see is the strongest person I've ever met. Isabella looked up at him, and something flickered in her eyes. Something that hadn't been there moments before. Hope. Get me out of here, she whispered. Ethan smiled. Hold on tight. They made it to the elevator before the alarms started screaming. The elevator doors opened to chaos. Security guards rushed toward them. Alarms shrieked. But Marie had positioned herself in the hallway, accidentally spilling a cleaning cart that sent supplies cascading across the floor. "Go!" she shouted. Ethan ran, pushing Isabella's wheelchair faster than he'd ever moved in his life. Through the lobby, out the doors, into the parking lot where Sarah Chen waited in a running car. "Get in!" Sarah threw open the door. They barely made it inside before security reached the vehicle. Sarah floored it, tires screaming as they pulled away from Greyston. Isabella was shaking in the back seat, her eyes wide. "They're going to arrest you for kidnapping. Only if we lose." Sarah's voice was steel. "And we're not losing." The drive to Ethan's motel took 12 minutes. They had 7 hours until the courthouse hearing. 7 hours to get Isabella clear-headed enough to testify. 7 hours for the drugs to wear off. Lily met them at the door with coffee and the kind of fierce determination only a 10-year-old could muster. "I made toast," she announced. "And I found articles about what those medications do. You need water, food, and time. We have some of those things." Despite everything, Isabella laughed, real and genuine. "You're incredible." "I know." Lily handed her water. "Now drink. We have work to do." By 6 a.m., Isabella's hands had stopped shaking. By 7 a.m., her eyes were clear. By 8 a.m., she was dressed in a suit Sarah had brought, looking every inch the billionaire heiress she'd been 5 years ago. But different. Stronger. "I'm terrified," Isabella admitted as they prepared to leave. Ethan knelt beside her wheelchair one more time. "Good. That means it matters." Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. When this is over, we'll figure out what comes next." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Together." The word hung between them, heavy with promise. The courthouse steps were packed with media. Hundreds of cameras. Thousands of people. The Free Isabella movement had brought protesters from across the city. Richard Grant stood at the top of the stairs with his legal team, his expression perfectly crafted concern. When he saw Isabella, something flickered across his face. "Fee. Isabella, sweetheart." His voice boomed across the crowd. "Thank God. These people kidnapped you from medical care. Come to me. Let's end this." "No." Isabella's voice was quiet, but it carried. "I'm ending this. Right here. Right now." She wheeled herself up the accessibility ramp, Ethan beside her, cameras tracking every movement. Richard's lawyer stepped forward. "Your Honor, our petition for emergency conservatorship is based on clear evidence that Ms. Grant is mentally unstable and I'd like to speak." Isabella's voice cut through the legal jargon. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, looked up. "Miss Grant, are you here of your own free will?" "I am." "And do you wish to address this court?" "More than anything." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Isabella took a breath, and when she spoke, it was with the voice of someone who'd found their power again. 5 years ago, I lost everything. My parents. My mobility. My sense of self. I became a ghost in my own life, hiding from the world because I was terrified of being seen as broken. Her eyes swept the crowd. "My Uncle Richard told me I was fragile. That I needed protection. That the world was too dangerous for someone like me." Richard's jaw tightened. He was right about one thing: I was vulnerable. But not in the way he claimed. Isabella pulled out a tablet, her lawyer projecting documents onto screens throughout the courtroom. "I was vulnerable to theft. For 5 years, Richard Grant has systematically embezzled $47 million from my family's trust fund." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Fake consulting fees. Fraudulent real estate deals. Isabella's voice grew stronger. "And when I discovered it, when I turned 30 and threatened his control, he had me institutionalized. Drugged. Silenced." "These accusations are absurd," Richard started. "Are they?" Isabella's voice cracked like a whip. She held up her tablet. "Because I have every transaction. Every forged signature. Every lie you told to my face while you stole my inheritance. Her lawyer began distributing documents to the judge. But the money isn't even what matters most. Isabella's eyes locked onto Richard. You tried to convince me I was too damaged to live my own life. That I needed to stay hidden, controlled, managed. You used my grief and my disability as weapons against me. She wheeled forward, and Richard actually stepped back. I'm done hiding. I'm done being silent. And I'm done letting you, or anyone, tell me what I'm capable of. Isabella's voice rang clear. I am Isabella Marie Grant. I am 30 years old. I have full mental capacity. And I am taking back my life. The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed her gavel. Order. Mr. Grant, in light of this evidence, I'm denying the conservatorship petition and ordering a full criminal investigation into these allegations. She looked at Isabella with something like respect. Miss Grant, you're free to manage your own affairs. Richard's face went purple. You can't. This is a setup. That man, he pointed at Ethan, has manipulated her. This is fraud. Actually, Sarah Chen stood. I have something else. She nodded to her cameraman, who projected a video onto the screens. It was Richard. In his office. Talking to his lawyer, clearly not knowing he was being recorded. I don't care if the drugs damage her permanently, video Richard said. Keep her sedated until after her birthday. Once I have permanent conservatorship, she'll never be a problem again. And that born idiot, ruin him. I want him destroyed so completely no one will believe a word he says. The recording ended. Silence crashed over the courtroom. How did you, Richard stammered. Marie's been recording you for 6 months, Isabella said quietly. Every visit to my apartment. Every phone call. Every threat. She smiled. Turns out I wasn't the only one who didn't trust you. The judge's expression turned glacial. Bailiff, take Mr. Grant into custody. As security moved toward him, Richard's careful mask finally shattered. You ungrateful little. I made you. After your parents died, you were nothing. I gave you purpose. You gave me prison, Isabella said softly. But Ethan gave me freedom. She turned to look at Ethan, and in her eyes was everything they hadn't had time to say. Gratitude, trust, and something deeper that made his heart stop. The bailiff led Richard Grant away in handcuffs, still screaming about injustice. The gavel fell one final time. Case dismissed. Outside the courthouse, the crowd erupted in cheers. Reporters swarmed, but Isabella just sat in her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face, not from sadness this time. From relief. Ethan knelt beside her, and without thinking, without caring about the 1,000 cameras pointed at them, he pulled her into his arms. You did it, he whispered into her hair. We did it. Isabella pulled back just enough to look at him, her hands framing his face. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. Maybe, but I didn't want to. Her smile was tremulous. I don't want to do anything without you anymore. Lily crashed into them both, her arms wrapping around their shoulders. We won. We actually won. And surrounded by cameras and chaos and the beginning of their new lives, Ethan kissed Isabella Grant for the first time. The internet would talk about that kiss for months. But in that moment, all that mattered was that they'd fought for something real. And they'd won. 6 months later, Isabella Grant stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse, no longer a prison, but a home. Below, the city sparkled in the evening light. Behind her, she heard Lily's laughter as Ethan helped her with homework at the dining table that had once sat empty and unused. Everything had changed. Richard Grant was serving 15 years for embezzlement, fraud, and attempted unlawful confinement. The trial had been brutal, but Isabella had testified with her head high, her voice steady. She'd reclaimed not just her fortune, but her power. The media had eventually moved on to other stories, though occasionally someone still recognized Ethan on the street. He'd become something of an unlikely celebrity, the construction worker who'd taken down a corrupt billionaire. But the real changes were quieter. more profound. Dad, I don't get this equation, Lily called out. What do you mean? We just solved one exactly like it. Ethan's patient voice drifted across the space. Isabella smiled. They'd been living together for 3 months now, Ethan and Lily in the guest wing at first, until we figure things out. But somehow, Ethan's things had migrated to Isabella's room. Somehow, Lily's art projects covered the once pristine walls. Somehow, the cold, empty penthouse had become filled with life. Marie bustled in from the kitchen. Dinner in 20 minutes. And Miss Lily, no negotiating about the vegetables tonight. But Marie. No buts. Your father and I are in agreement. Isabella watched the easy banter, her heart full. This ordinary, beautiful chaos, was what she'd been missing. What she'd thought she'd lost forever when the accident took her parents and her legs. Penny for your thoughts. Ethan appeared beside her, his hand finding the small of her back in that familiar, comforting way. Just thinking about how different life looks now. Better different or worse different. Isabella turned her wheelchair to face him fully. Ethan Bourne, you broke me out of a psychiatric facility, exposed my uncle's crimes, and turned my entire world upside down. She reached up, pulling him down until their foreheads touched. It's the best different I could have imagined. He kissed her softly. Even after 6 months, the touch still sent electricity through her skin. I have something to tell you, Ethan said when they pulled apart. His expression was nervous, excited. I got the call today. The construction company, the one I interviewed with last month, they want me to head their safety compliance division. Ethan, that's incredible. It's good money. Not billionaire money, but enough that I can, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Enough that I can contribute. Be a real partner. Not just. Stop. Isabella's voice was firm. You've always been a real partner. From the moment you defended me on those restaurant steps. Her hands framed his face. The job is wonderful, and I'm proud of you. But your worth to me has never been about money. I know. Ethan's voice caught. I need to feel like I'm building something. For Lily. For us. For the future. Then we build it together. Isabella pulled a small box from her pocket. Which brings me to something I've been wanting to ask you. Ethan's eyes widened. Isabella opened the box to reveal 2 rings, one masculine, one feminine. Both simple, elegant, perfect. I know this is unconventional, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I know usually the man asks, but I've spent 5 years following conventions, doing what was expected, being who people thought I should be. She looked up at him with tears in her eyes. And I'm done with that. So I'm asking you, Ethan Bourne, will you marry me? For a moment, Ethan just stared. Then his face broke into the most beautiful smile Isabella had ever seen. Yes. God, yes. He laughed, pulling her up from the wheelchair into his arms, something she'd worked with physical therapists for months to be comfortable with. Though I have to warn you, I was planning to ask you next week. I already bought a ring. You did. Had it for a month. Been carrying it around like a nervous teenager. He set her gently back down. Guess you beat me to it. I'm competitive like that. Dad? Isabella. Lily appeared in the doorway, her eyes huge. Are you? We're getting married, sweetheart, Ethan said softly. Lily screamed, a sound of pure joy, and launched herself at them both. I'm getting a mom. A real mom who actually wants to be here. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Lily, her voice broke. I would be honored to be your mom. If you'll have me. Are you kidding? You're already my mom. You help with homework and come to my soccer games and you never, ever make me feel like I'm in the way. Lily looked between them. You make Dad smile again. Like really smile. Like he did before everything got hard. Ethan pulled them both close, and they stayed like that. 3 people who'd found each other in the darkness and decided to build something bright. 3 months later, They were married in a small ceremony in the same park where they'd been ambushed by photographers. This time, the press was invited, but at a distance. Isabella wore white lace and sat in a wheelchair decorated with flowers. Lily was the maid of honor, beaming in a purple dress. Sarah Chen was there, along with Marie, who cried through the entire ceremony. When Ethan kissed his bride, the crowd cheered. But the moment Isabella would remember forever came later, at the reception, when Lily stood to give a toast. "I used to think families had to look a certain way," Lily said, her young voice surprisingly steady. "Mom and dad and 2.5 kids and a dog. But I was wrong." She looked at Isabella and Ethan. "Families are just people who choose to love each other. Who show up. Who fight for each other even when it's scary." She raised her glass of sparkling cider. "Dad taught me that when you see someone being hurt, you don't look away. Isabella taught me that being strong doesn't mean you're never afraid. It means you keep going anyway." Lily's eyes glistened. "And together, they taught me that the best families aren't perfect. They're just real." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. A year after the wedding, Ethan stood in the doorway of what had once been a guest room and was now a nursery. Isabella wheeled up beside him, her hand resting on her growing belly. 6 months pregnant with a baby they'd been told might not be possible, but who was proving to be as stubborn as his mother. "You okay?" Isabella asked softly. "I'm thinking about that night at Lumiere," Ethan admitted. "How I almost didn't say anything. Almost just walked past you. But you didn't." "But I didn't." He turned to her, wonder in his eyes. One decision. One moment of doing the right thing. And it changed everything. Isabella reached for his hand. "You gave me my life back, Ethan. My voice. My freedom. Myself. You gave me purpose," he countered. "You gave me a reason to be brave. We gave each other a future." Lily appeared behind them, now 11 and growing so fast it made Ethan's heart ache. "Hey, the photographer is here for the magazine interview. Are you ready?" The interview was for a profile piece, not about Isabella's wealth or the scandal, but about the foundation they'd started together. The Grant-born Foundation for Accessibility and Advocacy, dedicated to helping people with disabilities fight discrimination and access resources. Isabella had turned her pain into purpose. Ethan had turned his integrity into impact. Together, they were changing lives. "We're ready," Isabella said. As they headed to the living room for the interview, Ethan caught his reflection in the hallway mirror. He looked different than he had 18 months ago. Not because of the nice clothes Isabella had bought him, though he'd finally stopped fighting her on that. Not because of the wedding ring or the upscale address. He looked different because he was happy. Truly, deeply, impossibly happy. The single dad who'd been 3 weeks from eviction. The paralyzed heiress who'd been locked away from the world. The brave little girl who'd lost her mother but gained a family. All of them broken in different ways. All of them healed by choosing to see each other. To fight for each other. To love each other. The interview went well. The photographer captured them laughing together. Isabella, Ethan, and Lily, with the city sparkling behind them and hope stretched out ahead. When the article published 2 months later, it ended with a quote from Ethan that would be shared thousands of times across social media. "People ask me if I believe in fate, in destiny, and I tell them I believe in choices. I believe that every day, we choose who we want to be. We choose whether to look away or step forward. We choose fear or courage. We choose isolation or connection. Isabella and I chose each other. And that choice, that simple, terrifying, beautiful choice, made all the difference." We have come to the end of the story. Thank you for watching to the end. Share your opinion about this story in the comments. I like getting feedback from my audience. And also, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our heartwarming stories.